Hello, good evening. Welcome. This is Hot Edition. We're live news up here at Desawe Kanda, also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, also on W93.5 in Y and beyond, also all across the world on 3news.com. Coming up this evening here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. 4 sitting days now as minority in Parliament brings activities of Parliament to a halt as a boycott proceedings to support Asin North Member of Parliament James Jatakwesi in his ongoing criminal trial. The majority, meanwhile, say they are counting down to trigger the necessary processes against the NDC MPs.
Reasonably, once I tell you we are counting, you know the ultimate where we want to lead to.
We'll bring you details of what happened in Parliament earlier today. Also, a Greek minister, Brian Champon, confirms the transfer of some 100 million cedis to the Food Suppliers Association, who have been picketing at the office of the National Food Buffer Stock Company. But how is government indebtedness to the various supplier groups affecting the free senior high school program? It's a big conversation we're going to be having this evening here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We have the latest in business, sports, and entertainment coming up over the next 60 minutes. Stay with us. Alfred Ocansey. Let's get into the details now. And for the fourth time in the session of the ongoing parliamentary sitting, the legislative chamber failed to conduct any significant businesses as the minority side of the House staged yet another boycott in solidarity of the colleague standing trial. All 137 legislators of the NDC did not turn up in Parliament as the criminal trial of James Jatakwesi continued today at the Accra High Court. The resolve by the minority legislators meant when their Greek minister turned up to answer questions posed by them, Brian Champon could only answer a handful of questions that's on the other paper left to capture the rest of his responses. Now, what we're learning as well is that a number of the questions that this Greek minister was expected to answer was supposed to have been asked by the NDC MPs. The absence also did mean that he did not answer these questions, entirely. The minister nonetheless announced the payment of some 50% of the monies owed the food suppliers under the Food Buffer Stock Company.
500 million cedis has been paid to the suppliers. We still owe suppliers a little north of 203 million Ghana cedis. Such release, Mr. Speaker, we've sent to Finance, and last week we received 100 million, which is 50% of what is due the suppliers. We have transferred same through the processes to buffer stock. We're hoping that, Mr. Speaker, by the midweek this week, that 50% will be sent to suppliers. Mr. Speaker, I have also assured the suppliers that by the 17th of August, as we commence the payment of the 50%, 17th of July, by the 17th of August, the remaining 50% will be paid. Mr. Speaker, we have kept faith with the buffer stock suppliers. As I mentioned, the total business that they've done with the buffer stock company is to the tune and exact 2,705,408,476 cedis and 58 pesos.
Well, so that's what happened in Parliament today. You had that response from Brian Champon, the Greek minister. The House was adjourned with no indication of the NDC MPs returning. In fact, the situation their majority counterparts continue to describe as worrying. Kamala Kloche has been detailing the reactions in this report.
It's a decision unpopular as it may be. The NDC MPs in Parliament says they will stand by unrelentingly.
And we were counting, patiently counting, that they will meet the mark and then we'll see what happens. Only for me to have a rude shock of my life today. The minority participated in two committee meetings, and yet they refused flatly to show up in the chamber. What kind of principle are they espousing?
Well, it's to show support and solidarity to their colleagues facing political persecution, as they describe it. In instances, it has affected the business of the House. The majority is calling their bluff.
This is an act of deception. And I want to challenge my friend, the Honorable Atuforsen, that he should show true leadership. If you are boycotting, boycott it truly, and let's see that you are boycotting it. So I also want to tell the Ghanaian people that they shouldn't take the minority they shouldn't take them serious. For want of a better expression, they shouldn't take them serious at all.
No amount of talks, irrespective of the position, will change their minds, the minority insist. Their action has been called into question in very strong terms.
Reasonably, once I tell you we are counting, you know the ultimate where we want to lead to. But we are also looking at that as a possibility. We have a power of oversight. And our oversight powers, if you look into our standing orders, it gives us the right to ask ourselves questions. Amongst ourselves, we can ask questions. So charity, they say, begins at home. Atuforsen should come clear on this matter. I think that they should bury their head down in shame. It's a very unpopular decision by the leadership. I know their side is divided about it. So why would you, on the, what do you call it, along the line, you decide, okay, this one I want to be part. It's childish. It's childish. And I think that, I'm not saying Atu is childish, don't get me wrong, but the decision to go for committee meetings and not to participate in the chamber, it is not right.
As the House readies itself to rise in 2 weeks and also have the presentation of the media review, is the majority expecting the NDC MPs to partake in the finance minister's presentation?
Maybe I'll grant the benefit of the doubt. I hope they will show up. If they don't show up, we'll go ahead and do what we have to do. So that one, I don't think it would be a problem at all. And it would be unfair for me, on my part, to prejudge and say that that one too, they will not come. I don't know.
But why are the MPP MPs worried about the absence of the NDC MPs when they have 138 MPs on their side?
I am proud to say, and I'll say this on behalf of our majority, all the things we want to pass, we've passed them. And we cannot make decisions without our numbers. Important decisions cannot be made without our numbers. Anytime we want to pass stuff, we got them passed. And we got our numbers marshal. So that one you have to understand. Besides the point, there are ministers who are also members of parliament. And we have to be practical here. Sometimes somebody is traveling out of jurisdiction, there's nothing you can do about it. And if I pick my data now, I look at leave of absence that I have a lot, many more members who are on leave of absence. Some on medical grounds, some on official duties.
Komla Kluche, TV3 News.
So that's my colleague Komla Kluche there. Is a chief parliamentary correspondent. Now let's go into the telephone now. And Samir Obeng is a director of Parliamentary Network Africa. So Obeng, thank you so much for joining us here on Hot Edition. What do you say or agree with the conclusion by the majority chief whip that the decision by the minority MPs to boycott Parliament is becoming unpopular?
Well, the decision right from the very beginning was not a very good one, so far as we are concerned, and we have expressed this as a civil society parliamentary monitoring organization that believes in the right of the people to be represented in Parliament. So we have always maintained that the fact that a member of Parliament being absent is equivalent to having hundreds or tens of thousands of constituents within his or her constituency losing their right to representation is one that needs to be considered very keenly when members of Parliament from either side decide to either boycott Parliament or walk out or what have you. And so we usually would advocate for the option of not staying out of Parliament, but using parliamentary tools and means to be able to express one's grievance.
See, but then again, they've been very consistent about the reason why they are doing this, and I'm sure not to belabor the point. For as long as any of their colleagues, the three MPs, NDC MPs who are facing trial for a number of issues, appear before the court, they will boycott it. I'm sure they've done their own assessment of the implications of this, and their resolve is to continue to do this whenever any of them appear in court.
Well, certainly. I mean, they have been consistent with it. They have done it. I think this is the fourth sitting they have stayed out. Around, if I'm not mistaken, 10 sitting days. So, 4 out of 10, if I'm not mistaken, and that certainly is a big deal. Certainly, we agree with the NDC minority that having a member of parliament subjected to what is almost a daily, appearance in court, it's not something that helps that particular member of parliament to play his or her role in parliament effectively. And so we have always advocated that, the idea to have this daily or too regularly, especially at the time when parliament is in session, needed to be reviewed. But in the same vein, we have also indicated that in one's quest to protect the rights of a member of parliament or to solidarize with one member of parliament or one constituency, 136 other constituencies should not be put in quote-unquote harm's way.
See, but what could possibly go wrong, and that is if this continues. And we know that the case, from how things are playing out with, for instance, James Atikwesin's case, it is going to go the long haul. And so what could possibly go wrong if there is really no change in strategy and the minority and peace continue to boycott Parliament?
A few things. The first, and for us the most important, is that any day that they are outside of Parliament or did not attend to Parliament, questions and other parliamentary engagements that relate to their constituencies directly, they miss out on the opportunity to engage on things. And we've seen that in these 4 sitting days or so, there's been on each and every one of those sitting days parliamentary questions that stand in the name of members of the minority side, who, because they are absent by the parliamentary practice, and because the answers have been provided or the ministers are present to answer the questions, those questions would have been deemed, ignored or dealt with. And these are questions that relate to electricity, road construction, education, health, and what have you, of their constituents. And for me, that is the chief injustice, that they could do to their constituents. But quite apart from that, the larger work of Parliament and the public also gets to suffer. And you see, when Parliament is unable to exhaust all of the things that it has on its daily sitting agenda, what happens is that for a Parliament that is looking at rising in about 2 weeks, we understand they are probably going to go on break around the 2nd or 3rd of August. For a Parliament that is rising around that time, there will be so much work that needs to be done towards the end of the ongoing parliamentary meeting. And that is where you realize that 2-3 days to the end of the parliamentary meeting, you'll find voluminous contract documents coming up for them to approve. You'll find so much work that needs to be done, and then the rush work begins. And then they are sitting long hours, and then they are using very little time to scrutinize very important things. And we know what our country has suffered on the back of such things. So these are the 2 chief things that could possibly go wrong and will affect us as Ghanaians directly. Of course, there are the issues around absenteeism in Parliament and what have you, and those implications will be more on the individual members of Parliament of the minority who absent themselves.
See, but also the minority maintain that for the likes of you who raise these concerns about how their absence is impacting on the work of Parliament, you should also consider the reason why they are doing this in the first place. They are protesting what they call the persecution and not the prosecution of their colleagues. That is also, in their view, some level of injustice that you also must consider in your analysis of criticizing why they are even doing this in the first place.
it remains within their rights as minority MPs to solidarize with their colleague. And we have maintained that we think if a member of parliament will be distracted from his work on a daily basis or such regular basis, it is not something that, should be encouraged. And so on that vein, we align with the principle behind not frustrating the work of a member of parliament, in parliament. But we ask ourselves the question, in the quest to solidarize with one member of parliament or two members of parliament who are facing, court action, must 136 other constituencies suffer for things?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Samuel Obeng, for your time. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, Raoul.
Samuel Obeng is Executive Director of the Parliamentary Network Africa, but Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa is Member of Parliament for the North Tongue constituency, who sometime last week posed a question to the Speaker of Parliament to consider their absence of Parliament to support their colleague MPs in court as absence with permission, but the Speaker declined. And he had the explanation as to why he thought that the Speaker did not consider his point or position for the sake of the minority. Take a listen to him.
Seeking the guidance of the Right Honourable Speaker, because we observe that anytime we boycott, even though we have stated the reason, by parliamentary practice, when you state your reason, it serves as a notice to the Speaker and to the House, because on the day the Honourable Jachi Kwesi was sworn in, our leader served notice that based on what had transpired over the period during the campaign in Asinov, where the President stated categorically that Honourable Kwesi is jail bound, and that why do the Asinov people want to vote for somebody who is going to prison? Can he be MP from prison and all of that? Very prejudicial and reckless statements. So our leader said, based on that, it appears that this is just a kangaroo trial, and we are going to ratchet up, increase the solidarity. Previously, some of us will join him, some will stay in the house for business to continue. But the leader decided that we will up the ante now, and all of us will go, we will boycott the proceedings. Remember that in the parliamentary democratic toolkit, in the basket, boycotts are part of what members of parliament across the world use. Walkouts are part of it. The current president himself, when he was a member of parliament, engaged in a lot of boycotts and walkouts. Recently, I recall in the United States of America, when the Indian Prime Minister Modi went on a state visit and was scheduled to address Congress. The young Congresswoman Cortez staged a boycott because she said that she was not happy with how minorities are being treated in India. So the world over, boycotts are used. So I was quite unhappy that having served notice, the votes and proceedings was capturing us as absent. And I raised that because of the effect of Article 97 of the Constitution, where after 15 sittings, if you have missed 15 sittings, anybody can make an application to the Speaker for your seat to be declared vacant. So I thought that we settled the matter so that we are not ambushed or taken by surprise after having missed 15 sittings. Then somebody applies to the Speaker that our seat should be declared vacant. You know, our opponents can be quite ruthless when it comes to this matter. So it was a preemptive strike to get the Speaker to make a ruling so that there will be some clarity. I thought that having served notice, we should be captured under absent with permission, so that in that case, then our seats cannot be declared vacant after missing 15 sittings. But the Speaker ruled that if you read carefully Article 97(1)(c), serving notice verbally cannot apply, because let me quote Article 97(1)(c) just for our elucidation. It says that a member of parliament shall vacate his seat in parliament. C says if he is absent without the permission in writing of the Speaker, and he is unable to offer a reasonable explanation to the Parliamentary Committee on Privileges from 15 sittings of a meeting of Parliament during any period that Parliament has been summoned to meet and continues to meet.
Yes.
So the Speaker says that, so far as his records are concerned, we haven't written. Because it's an express provision that without the permission in writing. So the fact that our minority leader served notice verbally to him does not count. It doesn't meet the constitutional requirement of writing. So we now have the choice of writing to the Speaker. And when we write to the Speaker, then we can now be captured as absent with permission.
Okay, so that's Samuel Okujeto Blackwa there giving details and explanation as to why the Speaker earlier declined to admit their absence as absence with permission. Now, from what we understand, the minority leader has put their boycott in writing to the Speaker of Parliament, and so we'll see how the coming days will look like with their absence being captured by the Speaker as absent with permission or otherwise. But one of the things that happened in Parliament earlier today was the Minister of Agric, Brian Champon, confirming the transfer of some 100 million cedis out of the 270 million cedis owed the food suppliers who recently picketed at the office of the National Food Buffer Stock Company. But if you recall, early this month mounted a 4-day protest at the Buffer Stock Company's premises to demand immediate payment of monies owed its members. Let's go onto the telephone now and hear from Koku Amidome, who speaks for the Food Suppliers Association of Ghana, on your responses to the latest in Parliament concerning the issues. Thank you so much for joining us here on Hot Edition. So this is what the Agric Minister is saying. 100 million cedis has been just were received and it will be disbursed to you. Would you accept this money, the 100 million cedis out of the 270 million cedis you're owed?
Thank you. Good evening, Alfred, and I'd like to say good evening to your viewers.
Listeners will do.
Yes, your listeners. It is true that we have the hint that this is what has happened today in Parliament. But in all these things, in all our agitation to get our money, we have heard all kinds of information, counter information, and so we will not want to react until we are called and told this is how much they are giving us money. Mind you, we have made our communication very clear. We have made it clear to the general public that we are settling on nothing but the full payment of the amount, and so we have made our point so clear. So if there's any need if there is anyone who would want to have us change our mind, it should have been a matter of dialogue. And as to the total figure that is owed to us, a different figure is heard on the airwaves being mentioned and bandied around. Those figures, we have our figures, and I think they also have their figures. And in fact, this 270 million that we're talking about, they have also affirmed the same figure throughout their engagement with the media. And they are on record to have accepted that they are indebted to us 270 million. But this is not a question for argument, or this is not an issue for argument in the public in the public space here. We will wait patiently, knowing that they will invite us tomorrow to come for a check. Some explanations will be given, and thereafter we can make our decisions going forward.
I'm sure you're saying this because the minister quoted 203 million, and you have always maintained that you are owed 270 million. So,
exactly.
So you have documents that proves that you're owed 270 million in total, and not 203 million.
Exactly. In fact, that has never been in controversy because they have accepted publicly, they have mentioned it publicly, and so that. You see, even the different figure being mentioned should tell you the disconnect between the suppliers and working and the relationship of, let me say, the disconnection between the suppliers and Buffer Stock as an institution. Because we have been chasing this money for too long. So, and you have accepted this figure, 270 publicly. And now you go to Parliament to be quoting different figures. In the blind side of us, you're telling the whole public you have this and you are giving us this. And in closed-door meetings, when we ask you all these things, you refuse to tell us. Now, you've gone public to say all these things. But we have also made our point very clear that the money has been long overdue with government. And our interest is accrued. We have to pay the interest. Members have incurred a lot of expenditure.
Hello? Hello, Ms. Amidama, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I lost you briefly. You were talking about your members incurring losses because of this situation.
Yes, they are incurring losses because of this situation, and to make matters worse, they are no longer in the business with their clients. And so what is the justification for telling us to go back and come back on the 17th of next month? And are we coming back to do so much agitations and shouts on top of the route before we are giving our money? Is that what they are telling us? Because we have lost trust for each other.
Okay, but if I get the understanding, you've been very consistent in your position that you are not taking part payment and that you want all the 270 million to be paid to you. Now, the minister has categorically stated in Parliament today that it's 100 million that he is going to disburse to you. So what are you going to do about it? Are you going to take the money, or you will reject it and wait for 270 million?
I'm very reluctant to react to the minister's statement because very frequently the minister's statement turns out to be the opposite. And so I would wait very patiently for those figures to be confirmed with them tomorrow, because we'll definitely be having engagement because they're asking us to come back tomorrow for our money. So we will definitely be having that engagement. Then I can be able to react appropriately, because as we speak, Minister, Buffer Stock, Education, they have spoken on several occasions, which turns out not to be the real situation. And so whatever they say now, well, it is in Parliament. So we want to be faced with the reality. Then members can decide what they want to do now. For now, we have made our point publicly clear. Okay. From the day one that we're going to accept full payment of our money.
Thank you. Mr. Kokoa Medoma speaks for the Food Supply Association of Ghana. Let's stay a bit on this. And Kofi Asare, Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, one of the foremost CSOs in education space on the continent. Ms. Asare, thank you so much for joining us here on Hot Edition. Does it concern you that it's not just with the food suppliers who, as a result of the indebtedness, saying they cannot engage with the food buffer stock again? We're having the institutional suppliers of uniforms to the senior high schools in this country also saying they cannot meet the demands because of the increasing cost. And so first-year students of senior high schools are wearing mufti for the first and second term, and they don't know when their uniforms are also going to be made available. Zazari.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all, because if you study the trends in expenditure on the free senior high school appropriation, you realize that for the past 6 years or so, there's hardly a year that the finance ministry ended up disbursing more than 65% of approvals for the free senior high school program. What has not been disbursed, even though approved, cannot be spent. So there is a disbursement challenge relating to the free senior high school, and the trend for the past 6 years tells every stakeholder, every keen observer, that government is only able to finance about 60% of the cost of the free senior high school. The rest is what we see every day. So I'm not surprised at all. Concerned? Well, I am concerned because it's been pretty obvious from day one that government was not going to be able to feed and clothe and house everyone, rich or poor, in senior high school because of this wholesale free senior high school program. Parents who were previously buying uniforms for their children in junior high school 3. Suddenly, I declare so poor that in senior high school 1, they can no more buy a school uniform. I mean, it just doesn't make economic sense. But for political reasons, we've decided to continue running a program which is very, very low on cost efficiency this way. So I'm not surprised at all that there's no money to pay school uniform suppliers, and that some of them are owed as far back as 2021. I think what government should do is what government already knows, but perhaps finds it difficult to admit for political reasons. Government should just cancel the contract of all these uniform suppliers. We don't need them. I don't think the average parent in Ghana cannot afford 120 Ghana cedis worth of a pair of uniforms for their wards in senior high school, especially when that same ward was having a pair of uniforms when they were in junior high school. I don't think that is something beyond the reach of parents. Government should invite more than it can chew. It is time for government to just eat humble pie and allow parents to take care of the aspects of the program that parents can reasonably take care of.
Well, it is this humble pie that you're expecting government to eat that government doesn't want. In fact, government doesn't have the appetite for this humble pie, because it's not as though the parents have not said that they cannot afford this, or they haven't indicated that they cannot afford this 120 for the children to have their uniforms. Government is saying, I will foot the bills for you regardless. That is, even if you want to pay for it, don't pay for it, I will pay for you. So what has to happen to get government to get the appetite for this humble pie that you want them to eat?
Well, what must happen will not be in the interest of the citizens, of the public. What can happen is what is happening in the feeding enterprise. Parents are paying various sums of money to schools to ensure that their children are not hungry. You understand? But yet government will deny and government will go ahead and supply. So what can happen is the same thing, that parents will, on the basis of the obvious fact that government is unable to buy school uniforms for their wards, buy uniforms for their wards. This is just 120 Ghana cedis or thereabouts. And if parents do that, government will still go ahead and procure, because the interest of government is also in the procurement of the uniform, and not necessarily and not only the free aspect of the uniform, but the procurement is also a benefit that government is interested in. So whether parents buy it or not, if government does not accept that, taking on the responsibility of buying uniforms, is too much an adult tax, and that it doesn't make cost efficient sense, and so government should leave it to parents. If government does not come to that admission and parents go ahead and buy uniforms for their children, government will still go ahead and procure uniforms on credit, because there's a benefit, there's an interest in their procurement, and it won't be different from the food situation we have today. And that is why I think government must eat the humble pie and tell parents that, parents, I'm unable to feed your children, buy church cloth for them, buy PE kits for them, buy free SIV for them, buy free notes for them. Bear in mind that all these things are not available in basic schools for free. But so if after doing all this, I am stressed, I think that I have the right to seek your support by way of you taking care of the pair of uniform, which I have been paying 120 Ghana cedis a year for. I think that this humble pie is not too hot to eat, and that it is time for the Minister of Education to begin, to wake up and smell coffee. That is the reality. The reality is that you don't have the luxury of funds that you can spend the way you want to. Don't forget that we are supposed to be in an austerity, and so the more cost efficient we are, the more prudent we are in spending the we have, the better it is for the education sector as a whole.
Mr. Osari, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kofi Osari is the director of the Africa Education Watch, sharing his thoughts with us on this. But if you recall, sometime last week, the Binduri Senior High School was shut down temporarily over the lack of food to feed the students. Another issue that the students complained about in that school was also the lack of uniforms as well, because they say that they've been wearing the unapproved uniforms for 2 terms. Take a listen.
You're providing them food 2 times, 3 times a day. are here only once. Even though we cook without salt. Oil we will not get. Only banku throughout the week. We don't get anything. We are here suffering every day. What is wrong with us?
Don't cry.
Look at you have been wearing this thing. Yes. You are wearing this thing. We don't have Friday well. We don't have outing. We don't have outing. Look at green check. These people are wearing green check. When they come, they have to get what? They have to get their big things. But still, they have not provided anything. We have come to them. We need that. We should come back.
Also live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Also live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamil and beyond, and also on W93.5. And beyond all across the world on 3news.com. Ahead of the periodic COVID-19 vaccination exercise scheduled to start tomorrow, July 19, to reduce the high number of people who have received zero immunization, some Ghanaians who have not yet received any jab say they have no plans to take the vaccine. Now, a cross-section of the people who claim to be unvaccinated tell 3FM they doubt the existence of COVID. The COVID-19 vaccines have been a key additional preventive measure to existing protocols in the response to the disease in the country. Yet, despite strides made in its uptake to ensure the country attains herd immunity, perception about the non-existence of the COVID in the country has resulted in some 4 million persons failing to take the vaccine, while the announcement by the WHO that it's no longer a global health emergency is also believed to have fueled the misconception. These unvaccinated persons insist the disease is over and have no plans to take the vaccine.
To say it's not there, because things that are not there don't have names.
Have you vaccinated?
Not yet.
Why?
I'll do that when the time is right.
Media me who say COVID-19 yalipa ba nipa bre mudada yo.
Now what for vaccine be there?
Vaccine there mean
I didn't see.
Currently, I think COVID-19 has gone now, because I've not had anybody, having any casualty, or maybe I've not seen any case of COVID-19.
I can't really enjoy me. Me can't say enjoy me that.
Sir.
And I enjoy me.
Now, what vaccinated?
Oh, me. Me so be as me. Yare na ni ho, because nyenta me say yare na ni ho nse. Me hu say bi achu bi ana say ye say ye quarantine crofo ni ade me hu da. Nti me hu da no me ntumi njintu.
Vaccine wa wo bi?
Me wo bi e.
Adenti.
Oh. Me jinya me di na me ye me hu aduro nso bibiduro ni sa de no nti.
Well, these concerns that the Ghanaian people raise in there, and the position that you're not going to take the vaccine is what the Ghana Health Service says it aims to address and encourage the uptake of the vaccines.
In the urban areas, because of the way we live, people move in and out, and this, so that's quite difficult to access, and that's why we have problems in Ashanti and Greater Accra to some extent. Even though we may have a high percentage in say Greater Accra, but in terms of the absolute numbers of people who are not vaccinated, usually higher than that. That's what created distortion. But we're going to ensure that we intensify our approach in the urban areas and reach as many people as possible.
The Greater Accra region is amongst 3 regions which are not performing well in the uptake of the vaccines. Regional Director of Health, Dr. Charity Sapong, says focus will be on the low-performing districts.
The districts have been asked to, intensify their social mobilization activities, interact with the populace, give them adequate information, recognize within those districts individuals that will spearhead the vaccine acceptability. So these are some of the strategies that we are putting in place for this round, and we want to believe that by the time we are done on Sunday, we will get what we are looking for.
The 5-day exercise ends on Sunday, July 23, with a target to give out at least 1 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccines. Some of the stories now here on Hot Edition. The National Executive Council of the New Patriotic Party has directed all regional executives of the party to stop charging parliamentary aspirants unapproved fees. A statement signed by the party general secretary, which we have a copy of, Justin Kodia Frimpong, indicated that though the intentions of the regional executives may be positive, it is only the national executive of the party that can direct such charges, and therefore called on them to cease such charges with immediate effect. Also, the statement reads in part, accordingly, all regional executive committees are, by this letter, directed to cease forthwith the issuance of any directive on the conduct of parliamentary primaries unless and until same have been approved by the National Executive Committee in accordance with the Constitution of the New Patriotic Party. And it continues that while the National Executive Body acknowledges and appreciates the otherwise good intentions behind these decisions, the regional executives are hereby reminded that directives governing the conduct of the elections of the party can only be issued by the national executive of the New Patriotic Party. Now, we have some information just coming through from the Ashanti region now, and 2 people sustained machete wounds following a clash between traders and macho men at Akwetia Line in the Aswanse municipality. Let's go on to the telephone now, and our chief correspondent in the Ashanti region, William Evansikum, is connecting with us. William, what more do we know about this incident?
Well, so we understand that the land has been in concession for some time now. In fact, it belongs to a private person who is now deceased, but portion of the land was leased to the Asokore Mampo Municipal Assembly. That is what we have. But the agri traders also claim that they have secured an injunction on the erection of a project, of course, which is being spearheaded by the assembly, only for the contractor to come on site today with macho men, because the agri traders had prevented the contractor, from conducting any business on that particular, project site. But according to them, the contractor hired some macho men to attack them. In fact, it was quite bloody, if not for the swift intervention of the police, it would have turned to something else.
See, now we'll talk about the security situation there. What more can you tell us? Is it a combined police and military presence, or just the police service were there?
It was only the police service, but this time around the anti-terror squad, they were actually deployed to the scene. So they were able to contain the situation because, the heavily built guys went agog, and it only needed them. That level of experience to be able to tame them. So I can tell you that now calm has been restored, and normalcy is also the order of the day now.
Great. William, thank you very much for this update. Appreciate it. William Evansikum is our chief Ashanti regional correspondent. Then let's get into business. 14 minutes to the hour, 6 p.m. Here on Hot Edition, and AQ Mensa Brampa is here. Anna?
Right, Alfred. Good evening to everybody. Still Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. And beginning with On Business tonight, economist Dr. Saad Idrisu is making a case for the reintroduction of road tolls in the mid-year budget review. He therefore called for the scrapping of the electronic transaction levy, describing it as a nuisance tax. Speaking to 3 Business, Dr. Idrisu believes replacing the e-levy with road tolls will not only yield the needed revenue but also create jobs.
Government will refocus on e-levy, either reducing it to 0.5% or cancelling it as a whole, because if you look at the e-levy, it's like a nuisance tax. It is not bringing in the needed revenue government wants. Government projection was a 4.5 billion a year when it was passing the e-levy, but so far suggestions are that government is only getting, I think, up to 10% or so, which is around 600 million. So it clearly tells you that e-levy is not doing well. And again, if you look at the negative impact on the economy, all the small-scale businesses like the Momo Ventures, a lot of them are out of business now because of e-levy. So government need to really look at that. In place of that, government could reintroduce the road tax. At least it will help. You know, the toll booths are still there. Government could bring back the workers. Remember, a lot of them were kind of disabled workers as well. So it was, in a way, providing employment for all of them. Right now, they're out of jobs. Government could reintroduce the road tax because the whole focus should be on creating jobs within the economy.
That was economist Dr. Saad Idrisu there. And ahead of the mid-year budget review, businesses are calling for policies that will cushion them against the harsh economic situation in the country. Dr. Joseph Obeng is president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, and here is what he has to say.
We seek that the government look into areas that will give businesses a respite. Even under the IMF program, it does not mean that businesses have to be unnecessarily punished because we want to conform with the rules of IMF. There should definitely be mitigating measures by government itself to cushion the effects of the IMF conditionalities, and that's what we are seeking. That government should have some measures that will cushion up our suffering. Yeah.
That was Dr. Joseph Obeng, president of GUTA, and managing director of Talo Ghana, Wissam Al-Monthiri, has revealed the Jubilee field has the potential to produce about 1 billion barrels of oil in its lifetime. This follows the announcement by the company's production from its Jubilee oil field offshore Ghana that had surpassed 100,000 barrels of oil per day following the recent startup of the Jubilee Southeast project. Talo and its partners plan to maintain this increased level of production at Jubilee over the next few years.
When we first discovered Jubilee, we thought it was 1 billion barrels in place, with a view that we could probably recover 35 to 40% of that. Today, we are working towards Jubilee being 1 billion barrels recoverable field, meaning, we believe that there's a possibility to recover almost 1 billion barrels from Jubilee through its lifetime. And that puts it in another class when it comes to oil and gas fields of the world. Nothing happens in one step. Clearly, Jubilee's been producing since 2010 and has delivered a great deal of benefit to the country of Ghana, as well as through to Talo and its partners. As you know, we've invested Talo and its partners close to $17 billion in the Jubilee and 10 fields, and that's delivered over $22 billion worth of value to the country in the name of oil entitlements, taxes, and royalties.
Managing Director of Talo Ghana, Wissam Al-Monthiri there. Meanwhile, energy strategist and CEO of Eureka Energy Solutions, Dr. Yusuf Suleimana, has welcomed the news, describing it as a win for the Ghanaian economy.
This is huge, and it is something commendable, and we should pat ourselves in the back if that is actually realizable, because in the upstream, it is just almost become impossible to make 100% recovery. And what Talo is seeking to say is that the field originally was expected to have a reserve of about 1 billion, and they were targeting 30 to 40% recovery. That's about 400 million barrels of oil equivalent per stream day. And if they are able to recover 100% of that, let's say 100,000 within its lifetime, that is great. Is it something that is possible in the oil and gas industry? Yes, this is possible. In the upstream, sometimes you can go beyond your expectations. Other times you go below your expectation. Other times you meet your expectations. So these are all expected.
You heard Dr. Yusuf Suleiman, an energy strategist and CEO of Eureka Energy Solutions. Just before we go, a toxic culture of sexual assault, harassment, racism, and bullying has been alleged by more than 100 current and recent UK staff at outlets of the fast food chain McDonald's. Workers, some as young as 17, are being groped and harassed almost routinely. The UK Equality Watchdog said it was concerned by the BBC's findings and is launching a new email hotline. McDonald's said it had fallen short and it deeply apologized. You can get more of this as well as some other business news updates on our website. It's 3news.com. That's it for Business on Hot Edition with me, Nana Ikuya Mensah Brampa Oreko Ampofo is seated to give us sports. All right.
Well, thank you very much, Nana Ikuya, for the business news here on Hot Edition. It's now time for the sports segment where we'll be focusing a lot on the Black Queens, who are currently in action at the Accra Sports Stadium. It's the first round of the qualifiers for Paris 2024, and the Black Queens currently lead Guinea by 3-0. And then in terms of the aggregate score, it's 6-0. At the Accra Sports Stadium, we do know that they've scored 3 goals, and so the goals today were put in the net by Evelyn Bedu, who has a brace, and then Priscilla Adubia, she scored in between the brace by Evelyn Bedu. Now we have a reporter at the Accra Sports Stadium stationed, and that's Bill Sean. Bill, it's a pleasure to have you here this evening. 3-0 for the Black Queens. Not really that much of a surprise, but what have you made of the performance by the team tonight?
It's been fantastic all around. Although the first half was a bit slow, the team didn't take many chances as they stood up. But in the second half, everyone looked sharper. The balls were being passed around quicker, and Evelyn Bedu came to life. I mean, scoring a fantastic goal in the first half and also scoring in the second half as well. Priscilla Adubia also scoring. Just a few seconds ago, Fidelis Yakubu has also scored for the Black Queens. So it's now 4-0 for Ghana. And it's been fantastic all around. The fans have been cheering for them. They've been clapping because they look confident throughout. They've been doing fantastic football. And it's been a really fantastic work all around for the Black Queens.
Well, it's not just been about how well the team attack. Nora Hapto did say that they created a number of chances in Guinea, and they could have scored about 6 on the day. They may not have scored 6 today, but it's now been 5 games without conceding under the Swiss coach. Has that been one of their biggest strengths, or is it a case that they've just not been tested enough?
Yeah, it seems like one of the biggest strengths. And I think one key person who has helped. Now, Evelyn Bedu is on the attack. Oh! It seems to be fouled by a referee. There's nothing doing with it, so the game plays on. Evelyn Bedu had a one-on-one opportunity, but last with the goal to Kudi. But back to your point, I think the main deciding factor in the defensive solidity of the team should be brought down to Oshawa, who is the captain of the side. She's been seeing her play today. She's shown a lot of calmness on the ball. She's always at the right place at the right time. She's been commanding the team to make the right place, to make the right movement. And having someone be a leader like that at the heart of the defense is really, really crucial. And that is something that she's provided in the last 2 games. And long way to see.
Oh, I think I did rightly hear you say Evelyn Bedu almost had the chance to score a hat-trick, but it's still 4-0. But Bill, before we let you go for the final minutes of the game, if the Black Queens, which is very likely now, go past Guinea because they are leading by an aggregate score 7-0, they would face one of either Benin or Guinea-Bissau. Are they up to that challenge?
Yes, they certainly are up to that challenge. And at the moment, Benin looks likely to qualify because they are leading Guinea-Bissau by 3-2 at home, so it's time for an aggregate. And the Black Queens will be very confident going into that game against Benin, especially because earlier this year in February 2022, they met Benin here at the Accra Sports Stadium and they defeated them by 3-0. And also for fans who are a bit scared, I mean Benin have struggled in their last 5 matches. They failed to win any of them. They've only drawn 1 and they've lost 4 of them, scoring them 5 goals in 13. And so that is something that if Nora Hapsel and Espa look at, they'll be pretty difficult going ahead of that game.
Well, thank you very much, Billy Sean, for providing us updates from the Accra Sports Stadium. It's currently 4-0 for the Black Queens against Guinea. And if things stay that way, it means that the Black Queens progress to the second round of the qualifiers for the Olympic Games in 2024 because they would hold a 7-0 aggregate advantage over their Guinean counterparts. As things stand, they would be facing Benin, who lead Guinea-Bissau in the other first round qualifier. But that's how we wrap up the sports segment here. Up next on the bulletin is entertainment with Akofa.
Riku for that one, and hello and welcome to the entertainment news segment here on Hot Edition. My name is Akofa, and now the stories. Some Ghanaian event organizers in the diaspora have reacted to lack of support from the Ghanaian artist billed to perform. In an extensive conversation with Bella Mundi on TV3 New Day on the topic of crisis management in the events industry, Dennis Teria, organizer of Ghana Party in the Park, pointed out that artists need to understand their role in promoting events they've been billed to perform.
It's such a shame. This is more of a bigger issue than Ghana Party in the Park. This is what I'm putting out there.
Yeah. Okay.
Artists could take to social media to put out a statement about them not coming for whatever the reason will be. However, you've booked an artist, it's had a whole of 6 to 8 weeks to promote the event. They've not promoted the event that they are performing at. However, they have the chance to put out a statement rather to say they're not coming because of X, Y, Z. Our system between the whole ecosystem is not working, and these artists have to realize that we are there for them. Nobody better will promote you than a Ghanaian promoter in the diaspora.
Okay.
There are other companies that are now coming into the fold, whereby we've prayed for them to come into the fold. But also do remember, there's nothing better than your organic Ghanaian promoters or your community here in the diaspora. It doesn't make sense to me, an artist has got various artworks and hasn't posted the events they're performing on. However, they are quick to take to social media to put out a statement saying they're not coming.
How do you expect them to respond to something like this, or to communicate to their fans and other stakeholders of their absence at one event or the other?
All I'm saying is that the same way you would take to, the same way you're proud to let people know you're not coming to an event which you've been billed for, use that same energy when you build for it to push it as well.
Do you also face this challenge where artists, for some reason, don't promote your event, even when they're billed to perform?
Of course, we all do, and it hurts. Sometimes, like they always say, like what Don said, they're not promoters, obviously, but this event that you are performing on, that is really wrong. Yeah. Once you're on the event, we billed you for it, we paid you. Agreement has been signed. I don't need to call you before you post the flyer. Even this Ghana Music Award, you do a nominated flyer with the artists, all the categories that is in, you send it to them. They don't post it.
Yeah.
It's really nice. Your fans in London will see on your page that, you post it, you said, yeah, you are coming. Not all of them, but majority of them don't post it. And it's not good. They think they're doing us, but they're not.
So how then do we ensure moving forward? Because even signing a contract with them does not necessarily encourage them to post it. What are we going to do to ensure that as many of them promote the event ahead of time?
Yeah, I know. Some of them will say to you, what they will say, I just want to get to UK, unless maybe if I don't come, blah, 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 so why should I post it? But once you sign the contract, you've been to the embassy, you got your visa. What does that tell you?
You receive the down payment.
Exactly.
It means you are coming. So what is stopping you from posting it? Yeah. And if you go ahead and you start talking, it will be like, you talk too much, blah, blah, blah. So most of the time, to be honest with you, I don't even bother chasing them. I don't call you. If you post it, post it. If you don't, you come to the event and you see it's still packed.
And that will be all the entertainment news here on Hot Edition, powered by 3 Entertainment. My name is Akofa, and Alfred Ocansey is here to wrap it all up for us properly.
Indeed. So you're back at 8 o'clock.
I am back at 8 with Wind Down, the Tuesday edition. And I'll see you later on TV.
That's right, at 10
Ghana
p.m.
Tonight, yeah.
Ghana Tonight. So, yeah. Thank you so much for staying with us here on Hot Edition. The drive continues with EJ Faculty and Giovanni and also AJ Akwaku Sapon.
Do you have another Baby Grace happening? Because you just... Anyways, thanks for your time.
This will not succeed. Amen.
Home is your sanctuary. So set the mood with candles, fragrances, ambient lighting, and beautiful art to create that unique atmosphere that feels like home.